It's funny how hard drives should technically be getting more obsolete by the day, but in reality they show no signs of slowing down. They're both one of the oldest and the most widespread means of data storage, and while they are certainly less prominent in the gaming world, we'd argue that they're still irreplaceable, even today. And this is because the SSD isn't better than the HDD in all aspects. It performs way better, yes, but the two things that HDDs still have going for them are the much lower price per gigabyte and the longer lifespan. So if you're in need of a long-term storage solution, then HDD is still the better option. And for most people, they still perform just fine so long as they aren't accustomed to the lightning-fast performance of an SSD. That's why in today's video, we'll be giving you the list of the best HDDs currently available. So whether you're a gamer, professional, or just a casual user, we're sure you'll find something to love in these models. But before we get to the list itself, let's take a moment to discuss the two types of hard drives that'll be featured on this list. 3.5-inch hard drives are the full-sized desktop hard drives and are generally considered to be the baseline for HDD performance. They quite commonly have rotation speeds of 7200 RPM, loads of storage space, and generous amounts of cache memory. Some PC cases come with racks for 2.5-inch hard drives as well, but we don't recommend using these. 2.5-inch hard drives are obviously smaller, and as such, they're used primarily in laptops and consoles. They're great when used to these ends, but to achieve this size, the performance had to be reduced as well, which is why 2.5-inch HDDs on average have lower capacities, lower rotation speeds, and lower amounts of cache memory. All of the models on this list come in both variants, so now that we've got that out of the way, let's kick things off. Western Digital Blue hard drives are some of the most popular models ever, thanks in large part to how well they balance price, speed, storage capacity, and even power consumption. This goes for both versions. Laptop users in particular will appreciate how quiet the 2.5-inch model is, and this is largely thanks to Western Digital's no-touch technology, which makes it so the read head never comes into physical contact with the disk. In addition to making the HDD quieter, this also increases its durability and lifespan. And honestly, even though they operate at lower speeds like all 2.5-inch models, they're still pretty decent for gaming. The only real downsides are that the capacity leaves much to be desired, especially since the high-capacity models that do exist are hard to come by, and they're not the most long-lived HDDs out there. They aren't unreliable by any means, they're just in the middle of the pack. Now, as for the 3.5-inch version, here's where things start looking brighter. Technically, this will be true for all 3.5 versions, but the 3.5-inch Western Digital Blue HDD is just a direct improvement on everything. It has a much greater storage capacity, capping out at 6 terabytes, and a far larger memory cache. It can also be faster, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, with both 5400 RPM and 7200 RPM models available for you to choose from, which we think is pretty great. The faster RPM helps with load times in games, although if you need a strictly gaming HDD, there will be better options in this video. And if you just need something for casual use, then going with the 5400 RPM model is a fine way to save a bit of cash. That's really the only downside. It's not a high-quality model. Nevertheless, it's an excellent all-rounder. And besides, not everyone who needs an HDD is a gamer. Of course, if you need something a bit more performance-oriented, then look no further than the Western Digital Black. Even its 2.5-inch version is impressive. It's the only 2.5-inch HDD in this video that operates at 7200 RPM, plus its 32 MB cache size is nothing to scoff at either, given that this is a 2.5-inch model. This does imply a louder HDD as well, but while this is true, it's partially mitigated by the use of no-touch technology, as we've already mentioned. Additionally, the WD Black is readily available even in 1TB models. Honestly, the only negative that we can see with this product is that it's on the expensive side, but the price is more than justified if you're a gamer or a professional. If you're not, however, we'd recommend sticking with the WD Blue or one of the other models in this video. But before we get to them, let's take a look at the 3.5-inch version of this HDD. The situation here is very similar. The rotation speed remains at a solid 7200 RPM, which is certainly a good good thing. We're glad it's not higher, as this just makes the HDD more prone to breaking. Also, there are more storage options to choose from, with the most spacious models even getting extra cache memory. On paper, these specs may not look that much better than the Western Digital Blue has to offer, but like we've said many times, on paper statistics aren't everything. And the Western Digital Black HDDs really do live up to the higher standard of quality and performance. Although, again, they're only worth the extra money if you intend to put them to good use. So if you're not an avid gamer or a professional, we'd say go with something else. And now, this next one may be a tad controversial. The Seagate Barracuda has one of the most glaring flaws that an HDD can suffer from, but it also has so much to offer that the other models don't that we just had to put it on the list. It's not for everyone, but it may just be what you're searching for. So enough with the suspense. The thing that sets the Seagate Barracuda apart from the competition is its gargantuan storage capacity. Even the 2.5-inch version caps out at 5 terabytes. Most 2.5-inch HDDs only go as high as 1 terabyte. So if you're looking to deck out your laptop with copious amounts of storage, then the Seagate Barracuda is the only way to go. What's more, it has 128 megabytes of cache memory. This is insane for a 2.5-inch solution. Again, many 2.5-inch HDDs only have 8 megabytes of cache memory. Additionally, it has one of the best price per gigabyte ratios, and while we can't call the 5400 RPM outstanding, it's certainly not below the norm for 2.5 inches. So what's the bad thing? Well, they sort of have the highest failure rate on this list. So while we don't necessarily recommend them as a primary system drive, we still had to include them. Mind you, this isn't to say that they're bound to break or malfunction, but if you're looking for the most reliable hard drive, it's best to look elsewhere. And the same things apply to the 3.5-inch version, just with the numbers upped on everything. The capacity goes up to 8 terabytes, the cache memory up to 256 megabytes, and the speed gets bumped up to 7200 RPM, but the core problem still remains unsolved. There's even a 12 terabyte version in the Barracuda Pro model, but we don't feel that this is as important as the 2.5-inch version, giving you larger capacities, just because you can always connect more HDDs to your PC, but you can't always do that with a laptop. Again, if you need ridiculous amounts of storage, then this is a hard drive for you. Even for gaming, it performs rather decently with the increased speed, but if you're looking for a system drive, then at least consider the other options. Now, this last one is a bit different. So far, all the models we've featured had 2.5-inch and 3.5-inch versions, but they belong to the same line of products. That's not necessarily true for the last 3 models on this list, even though they are all made by Toshiba. So with that out of the way, let's introduce the Toshiba L200. The L200 is an affordable 2.5-inch solution made by one of Japan's top manufacturers. On paper, it's not all that impressive with the standard 500 gigabytes or 1 terabyte capacity, 8 megabytes of cache memory, and a rotation speed of 5400 RPM. But where the L200 truly shines is the ability to seamlessly blend together affordability, build quality, and reliability. Probably its most impressive feature is its high resistance to external shock, which is just amazing to have in a mobile hard drive. And it still performs well. Sure, it's not winning any awards for performance, but it's pretty decent. If speed is what you're looking for, then you probably won't be impressed with the L200, but if you're looking for reliability, you'll love what it has to offer. The Toshiba P300 isn't technically a 3.5-inch version of the L200, but it may as well be. Its specs are better with up to 3 terabytes of storage, more cache memory, and the speed of 7200 RPM to reflect its bigger size. But the overall design philosophy remains very much the same. It manages to retain all the build quality of the L200 at a reasonable price, but this time without any noticeable drop-off in performance. As such, we could very well call the P300 the ultimate all-rounder when it comes to 3.5-inch HDDs, offering excellent performance, quality, and reliability. And it very well would be if you could get your hands on it. This is the biggest problem, however. The fact that it's not as widespread as other models on this list can and does lead to availability issues at times. And last, but certainly not least, we have the Toshiba X300, which is in many ways an extension of the P300. It's basically the P300 for people who want more storage space. Capacity-wise, it picks up where the P300 left off, with the 4TB version actually being the smallest one you can get, and going up all the way to 8TB. It also has double the cache memory of the P300. Long story short, everything we loved about the P300 applies to this hard drive except the price. The X300 is not an excellent HDD wrapped in an affordable package. It's expensive. It's still great, but just like with the Western Digital Black, we can only recommend it to professionals and gamers. If you're a casual user, you're better off getting the P300. Now this is where we normally make a guide for shopping whatever it is we're making a video about, but since this video is already getting pretty long, we'll just go over a few quick tips. For a more in-depth guide, feel free to consult the article on our website. The link is in the description. So tip number 1. If you're already going for large volumes of storage, try and divide them between a couple of hard drives instead of buying one massive hard drive. The second option is cheaper, but the first one gives you the option to have one extra backup of all the really important stuff. Tip number 2. When it comes to rotation speeds, faster isn't necessarily better. And we don't mean this just because faster is louder. The faster the RPM, the greater the chance of breaking. This is why 10,000 and 1500 RPM HDDs never really took off. They're still being sold, however, so just make sure to avoid them like the plague. Tip number 3. Don't let cache memory impact your decision. This one really comes into play during demanding tasks, and even then, it's not that big of an improvement. Think of it more as an added benefit. Tip number 4. You don't have to pay any attention to connectivity compatibility even if you have an older motherboard, as most HDDs use standard SATA 3.0 connectors, which are backwards compatible with the SATA 2.0 that old motherboards use. So just pick the model you like the best without any worries. And finally, tip number 5. Beware that all hard drives are susceptible to breaking, just because there are so many moving parts inside them. We've mentioned that the Seagate Barracuda's most glaring flaw is its unreliability, and we've praised the Toshiba models for being the exact opposite. But this doesn't mean that all Seagate Barracudas will inevitably fail and that the Toshiba models are infallible. The moral of this story is always back up important data. And that about does it for this video. We hope you've enjoyed watching it as much as we did making it. Hit that like and subscribe button if you did, share and comment if you feel so inclined, and await eagerly as we prepare our list for the best SSDs. Also, in case you're curious about how exactly HDDs and SSDs stack up against each other, we have a video where we compare them point by point, and some, though not all points, go in favor of SSDs, so check them out as well if you're interested. The link is in the description. In the meantime, may your games be fun and your losses few. And as always, we'll see you next time on Gaming Scan.